Welcome back, City Builders. This is Hubbub in Nuvo Springs on the Azure Gulf Sunset Harbor City Skylines map. Want to give you a quick rundown of what you just saw in that time lapse. There were two sequences. The first was redeveloping this park over here. The second was May builds of these beach districts on the earlier part of the map. So I want to talk about that a little bit before I move into showing you or working on the beautification for the rest of this video. So when I started this build, I was actually working 100% vanilla. This build has undergone significant asset and mod creep. I'm up to about 2,200 assets and right at 50 mods. I try to only put in a mod that I think I'm absolutely going to need, but maybe I need to reevaluate that because 50 mods seems like a lot to me. In any event, when I first put down these beach districts, obviously I was preoccupied with the fact that I did not have any custom assets, did not have any fancy LUTs to work with, and I was trying to think of a way to create some attractive beachfront properties in the vanilla game. So one of the things I discovered 2 summers ago with an earlier build is it's actually possible to paint park districts on top of the old school generic vanilla districts. So what's going on here is an actual district that is zoned for commercial or tourism and the self-sufficient housing. And then on top of that is just a regular old park map. I can't remember if I designated this, or a park district. I can't remember if I designated this as a city park or as a preserve. And then the other piece that's going on here too is I do have some Sunset Harbor fishing industry properties along this edge. So what I'm going for here is a waterfront neighborhood. There are some high-rise buildings, and then there are high-rise residential buildings and some high-rise commercial. But most of this side of the Gulf is park. And then there's a small neighborhood over here. Obviously, as I mentioned, there's some fishery, 100% efficiency on these routes. There's an algae farm and two seaweed farm and an algae farm. And then the placement of this has not turned out to be quite as nice as I thought it would be, but I added the fish market right here next to this residential district. So, and it's just bordering on the commercial district further inland. So I'm not getting that many tourists here, but I am selling a decent amount of fish. And then again, not so sure the placement is the best, but the actual factories and warehousing for the fishing are down. There's some more, so shellfish, anchovy, another algae farm or fish farm here, and then the factory there. So we've spread out this industry along this side of the shore. Obviously, I haven't done much work at all on beautification here. I just extended the land bridge out and plopped those factories. Over here is where I did a little bit more work. adding in some parks that would park paths to try to make them look like piers, add some of the in-game in-game park features. And then there's a little bit of zoning here. So there's some seaside commercial or low density commercial here along the shore. And then just park paths and some viewing decks along here. Somewhere I could have sworn I have a volleyball, looks like volleyball court over here, some camping over here. And then this was pure accident in a sense. I just kind of made this connection that the low density residential self-sufficient buildings actually look an awful lot like bungalows. So this little neighborhood here was an afterthought, but then I continued that over on this side. This side, I was trying to go for something bigger. Obviously, I don't have resort hotels down right up on the beach, but zoned these in such a way that I have some high-rise commercial coming in further back. And then again, this was zoned both as a park and as a residential neighborhood. So what's going on here is, and I'm trying to be kind of clever in how I sandwich these together. I have the dirt road close enough. Now, I thought that was a path, but the dirt road in such a way that the houses are close up to the beach, but it almost looks like they're facing the path. So the path is traced in behind these houses. The houses follow the contour of the beach. And then some more. So there's another path there with another viewing deck. Some more park assets. These are all vanilla park assets along the shore, combined in with the housing. So we have some houses right up on the beach. And then this was, I think, is this another seaweed farm? So I'm not 100% happy with this. Okay, how do I say this? This is the only part of this LUT that I don't entirely like. I like sand. It's a little bit lighter color, but the rest of this LUT I do like. So I'm kind of living with this brown beach over here. Sorry, I'm bouncing a lot, but in amongst the housing, we also have some more park assets. We have the skate park somewhere in here. There is a bouldering site. I could have sworn I had a bouldering site, but also if I turn on the zoning tool, you could see that we've got residential and then some commercial, low density commercial, and I think I have this all set at organic, local produce and whatnot. So this kind of blends in better than some of the vanilla. There's some volleyball courts. My game is slowing down for some reason. Some volleyball courts, more commercial in here. So I think it all blends in together really nicely. And then this transitions into a slightly greener neighborhood as we come down the coast, adjoining the high density grid closer to the center of the city, and then it transitions into a more traditional looking suburb with the high efficiency houses, I think. These are high tech houses. So all in all, I was pretty happy with how this turned out. And there's some nice framing opportunities here for, I think this is a nice view. If I'm living in this little beach bungalow, I'm not entirely unhappy with my lot in life, I don't think. Similarly, if I'm over here in one of these hotels, that's not a bad view to be looking at across the Azure Gulf. So that's the beach properties from May that I put in. Then the second part of the time lapse that you saw was me doing a little bit of a redesign on this park. I literally flooded out these neighborhoods. I thought the lake was going to help with land value and that it would have a nice in-game appearance. I like to try to build around what's native in the map, and it just wasn't working. And part of the reason it wasn't working was kind of felt like this high school was empty as far as facilities go. It's just not enough to give a high school a tennis court and a basketball court off campus. And I felt like this park is doing a nice job of providing amenities for a wide range of citizens. We have a climbing frame, a little playground here for younger kids right next to the elementary school. There are some public restrooms here, some gazebos for people taking walks. I had previously added in this bouldering site as well. But a high school in a middle to upper middle class neighborhood in a city like this actually kind of deserves some athletic fields. So I found these on the workshop, added them in, put in some parking next door. And so you may have noticed that these houses got flooded out for a few minutes when I flattened up that lake. And again, I'm happy with how this turned out. One of the things I've done here is stealing a page out of Biffa's playbook, added a gate on the north side of this park. So we are generating a little bit of revenue. Well, not right now, apparently. We have been generating a little bit of revenue as Sims navigate south from the monorail station here, and then you can see them right there walking through that park. And then I had some fun with this. I am not normally a detailer per se, but I stumbled across these, what do we call them? These food trucks in the workshop when I downloaded a food court park to add in elsewhere, and I just ended up dropping in these food trucks. So this is a cool little place. If you're a student at the high school on lunch, you can come over, hang out at the football field. I swear I added in some picnic tables here. The only thing I'm not 100% happy with this baseball diamond is the palm trees don't quite fit with the vegetation for the rest of this part of the map. So I may end up seeing if I can find a different baseball diamond to drop in here with vegetation that fits better. But all in all, again, I'm pretty happy with this. So with that, we'll move into the beautification segment. You're already actually looking at it. There's a time lapse that will show all the work on the beautification coming up next. What we want to do for the rest of this entry will be working in beautification of these neighborhoods here. The main problem that I need to focus on here is how to add in the trees that I want to add or the foliage that I want to add without obstructing views. So that's going to be a preoccupation as I go through this. And let's just get started. Now I really like, I'm almost at the point where I'm overusing them, but I very much like these cherry blossoms. These are Mr. Mason's also, I believe. So we're just going to start, and we'll go into time lapse at some point here, but I'm just going to start with these. Is prop anarchy on? It is on. Let me turn it off for a sec. I want to put these in an intelligent way. These will be kind of along the street, but in between the houses. or near the front of the houses. So we're just going to plop. And this gives some uniformity to the neighborhood, but these are not going to block anybody's view. And this will give uniformity to the district across the district. Now, is there space there? No, but there's foliage there already. Okay, if I can squeeze that in, that's a good spot. All right. Now that's kind of encroaching on that. Let's see. I don't know if it'll let me get away with this. Yes, it will. And let's put one on the corner. Now this might be overkill, or it might just pull everything together. What we've come up with. I ended up doing this over 3 times, which might or might not have been evident in the time lapse, because when I first started, I was feeling that the Mr. Mason cherry blossoms, not that they were overused, but in some instances they were very small relative to the spaces I was trying to place them into. And so they were kind of getting washed out by the geography. And so I went looking for a different, larger, brighter cherry blossom tree, and I found it. But then when I finished putting that in, the conclusion I came to was that it was just too much pink. So I ended up going back again and deleting half of those and putting back in Mr. Mason's cherry blossoms, where I think they fit pretty well. So I think that just kind of balances the colors out. I still might be at a place where I should forbid myself from using cherry blossoms again the rest of this build, because I think you can overuse anything, and I might be getting to that point. Then let's see some other things to look at. This is some of the rock placement with other vegetation that I did in space in between houses rather than trees, which would block views. So I was happy with these. And there's another location over here. Similar outcome. Lots of grass in here. Bushes down next to the bike path. Some pomace grass with colored blossoms on the end. Some slightly smaller trees amongst some rock placements. And I think this actually turned out pretty nice. And it doesn't block anyone's views. So that ended up being a net positive. And then one other thing that I did kind of as a whim, but and I was not completely 100% sure it was the best idea, because I don't know that you would necessarily see commercial restaurants at the end of a collection of streets in a neighborhood, but there were these blank spots that I wasn't building houses in because there weren't enough tiles that were collected to really build up some substantial residences. And this is right across the street from the park and the high school. So I think it kind of makes sense here to drop these facilities. There's an In-N-Out Burger. There is a Portillo's restaurant. And then this is, I think, one that just built in on its own. Although I might have dropped that. For some reason, I designated it. Let's see what happens if I undesignate it as a historical building. That might be a function of the asset. I don't remember dropping that. And then Bukal Pasta Restaurant. So that's kind of nice. And then there's also these little sidewalk cafes. I need to research who created these, because these are really handy in terms of increasing land value, and they fit pretty much anywhere, although I don't put them just anywhere. But all of this, I think, adds to the flavor of this neighborhood, and it's not entirely out of place here. Okay, so with that out of the way, what I'd like to do is just take a couple minutes to review what's coming next. I may do some stuff on time lapse because I don't know that I necessarily want to bore anyone that might stumble across these videos with 3 videos in the row of neighborhood building and beautification. So I'm either going to time lapse stuff, or I'll just space it out with other projects. So some of these other projects that have to happen are, one, there is one little park that I want to finish up over here. It's just kind of barren right now, but this is an important park for the whole neighborhood because it's connecting, for the whole city, because it's connecting these two stretches together. And if I pull up the park summary, you can see we're generating significant income from these gates because these trails are actually connecting these neighborhoods across the highway with this neighborhood So I am doing some research online to figure out what might be some good concepts for beautifying this space. And that might end up being a video all its own. Then another piece that I need to really work on is we have ore and oil to develop up around here, if I've got the map situated correctly. I do, and I haven't touched any of this yet. I do have farm and forestry industries set up, but because I don't have ore and oil running yet, there are several unique factories that produce luxury goods that I am not bringing to market. And that is important because if I turn on my happiness ratings, you could see that I have a lot of buildings, commercial buildings, that are not at the same level of happiness as the residential buildings and the office and industry. And part of that has to do with the fact that I just don't have luxury goods for commercial businesses to sell. If you look at the land value, these businesses are at a place where they're wanting to sell higher end products. So I need to get that into the system somewhere. And the other reason to do that is that'll increase revenue, which will let me lower taxes on commercial, which would also help with their happiness. Right now, my commercial zones are bringing in 45% of my income, so I just cannot afford to lower taxes on commercial at the moment. So the ore and the oil needs developing, which means I also need to locate some space for unique factories, and I'm pretty certain that this is going to be a ring of industrial complexes, partly because it's all fairly flat and won't require that much terraforming, partly because my two biggest industrial zones were already in this space to begin with. So it'll be a natural extension to move out in that way. And then the other piece is I can add another highway loop that runs through this area and up into these zones from the back end and then connect up with this highway here. So that's going to be another major project to undertake, which will improve accessibility. And who knows, maybe this space up here becomes another location for a secondary city. I don't know that that's absolutely necessary. I'm sitting at 106,000. I don't know how much more my CPU can manage in this build, so I'm making choices about population increase very carefully. But in any event, I want to get the other unique factories rolling. The other advantage with this site is the rail connection is right across the river here. So that is a useful point to notice. And then the last piece, and I don't know how much I want to say about this, but the city's been doing fairly well in terms of tourism. If I click on tourism, you could see attractiveness of the city is not bad. 82% isn't bad. It's maybe not the best, but it's not bad. My weekly tourist visits are pretty decent. I could hover over my airport and you can see the people crushing out of the airport into mass transit. A nice mixture of low, medium, and high wealth coming into the city. Attractiveness numbers are good also, but I don't have a harbor yet. And so the plan is this is going to be where I'm going to bring in most custom assets I could imagine in this build, because I'm going to turn this into a high-end luxury tourist waterfront at some point in the not too distant future. It's nice and flat. I don't think it'll be too hard to get a key wall in here and create a nice environment for a luxury hotel, maybe even some casinos. I'm not entirely sure about that. And that's about it. I'd like to thank anyone who is watching, and I will see you in the next video.